Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Helping Your Buyers Win a Multiple Offer Situation with MAPS coaches Jen Davis and Sarah Detmore. Please note this webinar is being recorded and you will automatically receive the webinar recording. If you have questions for your coach, please type them into the questions box located in your webinar taskbar. Following the webinar, if you have any questions about today's call or coaching programs, please email us at fasttrack@kw.com. That's FASTTRACK@kw.com. That's all for me, ladies. Take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carlos. And hi, everybody. Thank you guys for joining us on this wonderful Wednesday. My name is Sarah Detmore. I'm here, of course, with the amazing Jen Davis. And we're going to introduce ourselves real quick before we jump into today's content on how to help your buyers win in a multiple offer situation. Jen and I both think this content is super timely, just based on the things that she and I are experiencing in our markets. I'm in Houston, Texas. Jen, of course, is in Springfield, Missouri, and we'll get to just intros real quick before we dive into today's content. So again, my name is Sarah Detmore. I am the Vice President of the Buyer Agent team with the Loken Group out of Houston, Texas. I have been with the Loken Group for 7.5 years now, started as a buyer agent and kind of worked my way up, growing a team within a team, and now oversee our buyer agent team of 12 agents. So far this year, we have closed and pended 353 buyer units, and we're on track to do about 500 buyer units this year. And of course, I have the wonderful opportunity to partner with MAPS and co-coach a group coaching program with Jen. And we're so excited to talk to you more about multiple offer situations with our buyers and just a bit about our group program today as well. So Jen, go ahead and tell us who you are and where you're from.
I will. 500 buy-side units. That's amazing. Land has to be like exploding with excitement. So that's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
My name is Jen Davis. I am the CEO of Holt Homes Group out of Springfield, Missouri. I served as our lead buyer specialist for the first 6.5 years I was on the team. Took over as CEO about a year ago and still really work very closely with our buy side, handling the scripting and challenges with negotiations on the day-to-day. So my heart is on the buy side. It's probably my favorite conversation to have, and I do have the honor of co-coaching the ultimate buyer agent with Sarah Detmore. So Sarah and I are relaunching our program, new name, new content, new scripts, new script book that will come with the program, and that relaunches September 23rd at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. We'll give you some more information on that a little bit later. Now I think though, Sarah, are you ready to dive in?
Let's get started. I know we have you guys will see that Jen and I will take the full 30 minutes here because she and I are turbo eyes. We can talk forever, but especially talking about the things that we love the most, which is working with our buyers and most importantly, getting our buyers into these homes that they love when we're up against multiple offers. So Jen, why don't we talk about really the first step of how we set our buyer up for success, which is just by knowing our market.
Awesome. Also, guys, remember the chat box. I see a couple of people have commented that they can't hear. If you can hear, if you'll put a number 1 in the comment, just so we make sure. And I'm going to go ahead, give you guys a minute to put that number 1 in there, and then we'll get started.
I love seeing all these names that we recognize. Hi, Liz.
Me too. Okay, so we've got to know our market. If we're going to win, we have to be an expert in our field. Our goal is to win the contract for our clients. Our clients, it's our fiduciary responsibility to get them into the best possible house at the best possible price. So even though we're in a competitive market, we're still being a great fiduciary for our buyers. So we have to know our market and we have to be confident in explaining that market to our buyer right out of the gate. So as important as building rapport is, as important as getting that buyer agency agreement signed, it's as important, even more so in this market, that you set the expectations. So if you know Sarah and I at all, you will know that we will talk about expectations until you are tired of that word. But you've got to set the expectations of what the market is doing, where the market is moving, so that your clients understand it, so they have the opportunity to win in a multiple offer situation. You've got to set that stage early. And what I mean by that is that's in the buyer consult. We've got to have clear expectations on these things that we have listed out. What's your list to sales price ratio? What's your average day on market? What's your months of inventory on hand? If you don't know these and you're a brand new agent, it's okay. You can use your team leader as a resource. You can use a member of your ALC as a resource. You've got to know this. The more information you know as a buyer agent, the more confidence you're going to have and the better you're going to be able to serve your buyers. So what we've got to do is we've got to make sure that they understand what it's going to take to win an offer. So if your list to sales price ratio is 105%, you've got to go 5% over list price to win the offer. Make sure they know that. And the reason we tell them in the buyer consult is because we want them to understand it before we get into the emotion of making the offer. So we're going to take the emotion out of it. When we're meeting for a consult, right then we're setting the stage of being the expert in the market. And we're telling them, guys, this is what you have to do to compete. If you wait and you don't say anything to them about market conditions until they're ready to make an offer and they don't understand it, their question to you will be, I thought you represented me. Do you represent the seller? Why are you telling me to go over list price? So what we're trying to do here, guys, is make sure that you understand how you build that relationship with your clients so that they trust you when they go in to make that very, very first offer. These are key pieces. Days on market. What's your absorption rate? That's the same thing as months of inventory on hand. If we know those, we can guide our clients to success. So Sarah, let's talk to me about some of this. So you and I are big into, we're not really salespeople, right? We're educators. We're educating people, our buyers, our clients on what's going on. So talk me through, how do you educate your buyers and how do you set those expectations?
Well, Jen, I love doing these with you because it truly, we spend so much time talking about buyer expectations. And I'm sure there are people on this webinar today who have been on a webinar or even with our group program before, and they're like, man, all these girls talk about is expectations. But from your experience and working with buyers at the level that you did, how important are setting the right expectations right out the gate with these buyers?
If you were giving me a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say a 100. It is the absolute sole reason why I've had the success that I've had with buyers.
Yeah. And guys, we know that through the market knowledge that Jen just shared and some things that we really want to make sure that we are knowledgeable of and can speak confidently about. I love that part too, is yes, we can have all this information. If we can't have a conversation with our buyer on how the market data that we have impacts them, then we truly can't speak confidently about how the market's going to, really define or help set this buyer up for success within that market. So knowing your market's one thing, and being able to speak confidently about the market and how it's going to impact your buyer is equally as important. And all that starts with the education and expectations. Guys, it doesn't matter if your buyer is a seasoned buyer who's bought 12 houses, because they've bought a house in a different market every single time, unless they bought 12 houses at once, which if that's your buyer, I'd like to know if they have a referral partner in Houston that I can also work with that buyer as well. So give me a call. But really, guys, how often do buyers come to us and say, oh, I bought a house 12 years ago. I know the process. You might know the process, yet let's talk about, let's educate the buyer on how the market's different and what it might take right now in our market to compete to get your offer accepted. Can we agree, guys, that getting your offer accepted in a multiple offer situation is sometimes the hardest part? Right? Once you're under contract, we've already got that relationship that we're working towards holding together. We can bulletproof that transaction, right? From, I think it's shift tactic 12, if I'm not mistaken, and that was shift, SHIFT, just to clarify that. However, the education, guys, and expectations all come in that initial consultation like Jen spoke about. So we want to educate our buyers on what it takes to be competitive or to compete in our market today. And when we do that, guys, that's where we're going to find out whether or not our buyer wants to be in this market right now. Because if they don't, that's okay. If your buyer doesn't want to compete, let's talk about how we can put them on a drip campaign. We'll circle back in a few months and follow up. On some of you that have inside sales agents on your team, we leverage that follow-up back to our lead generation partners and our follow-up partners, because it's not going to do us any good to take a buyer out to home shop or on showings, write offers, if your buyer's not mentally and emotionally prepared to be competitive. And it's okay either way. We want to know where the buyer stands, and that's why we want to have this conversation at the beginning. So you guys will see here on the screen, we do have a little script that we typed up where it just simply states, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, as we just discussed, the housing market's very competitive right now. Here are some things that we may have to consider when making an offer on a home to compete in today's market. And we're going to talk through our different strategies that we have as an agent or as a team for helping set our buyers up for success and making an offer in a multiple offer situation. And Jen, I want you to jump in here too. I know I just listed a few, but guys, we can increase our earnest money, double, triple your earnest money if your buyer's open to that. We can increase our due diligence fees. Here in Texas, we do have an option fee that the buyer pays when they are making an offer, which is, the buyer paying to have a 10-day due diligence period. In most cases, we can also shorten that due diligence period. We can waive our contingencies. We can waive our financing contingency. We can waive our inspections. We can waive our appraisal contingency, which is the same thing I just said as financing. We can waive all kinds of things. Yes, that is risky for a buyer, but like Jen just mentioned, when your buyer is aware of these things up front and it comes time to make an offer, then the buyer won't question whether or not you're representing them or representing the seller. Because guys, in a competitive market, it's very difficult, or it can be difficult for us to help our buyers understand that they might have little leverage. However, if their motivation and their time frame is there, and they are a true buyer, they will do whatever it takes to compete. So Jen, what else have you seen in your market as a strategy that you guys use to encourage your buyer to make a competitive offer in a multiple offer situation?
Well, Sarah, we talked about offline. We're right now getting 92% of the offers we make accepted. And part of that is because of these expectations early and often. I'm never going to talk a buyer into purchasing a house if they're uncomfortable with it. So what you just referenced is, yes, we're finding the timeline, and yes, we're finding their motivation. We're not asking them to risk anything that they're not comfortable risking. We're actually not asking them to risk anything. We're just explaining the situation and letting them choose. We're going to jump into really what's setting us apart here, I think, on the next slide. And what we're finding really works is talking with the listing agents. It's having that conversation, opening it up, and it sounds so minuscule. This sounds like such a no-brainer, guys. And what I'm telling you is it is not happening. I told Sarah I had to jump into production a little bit last month on the listing side, which is not at all my normal. And I took
You're doing great.
I took a listing, priced it well. We got 6 offers in a span of just a handful of hours. And one agent called me before they sent the offer. So when you guys are sitting there thinking, well, of course I would call the listing agent, I want you to really think to yourself, are you calling every time? Are you calling every time? Because what happens is on the buy side, if I'm a buyer's agent, I am calling and building that relationship with the other agent. I'm making sure that I can find a win-win. That's the goal in all of this. It's a win for my buyer. It's a win for the seller. It's a win for the other agent. I'm making sure that I'm looking at the complete package for this contract, because what I know is if it's a win-win, I can get that to closing. I know that if I have handled every objection that I can handle ahead of time, that I have more success in getting that deal to close. So it's a conversation. If Sarah's the listing agent, hey Sarah, it's Jen Davis. I'm so excited. I just want to let you know we're getting ready to make an offer on 123 Main Street. Is there anything that you could tell me that would that would make it hard for your seller to say no to me? Is there anything outside of price that is important to your seller? So we've listed out some things, and Sarah did a great job on this. Does the seller need post-close possession? What else does the seller need? Do they need a couple of weeks to stay in the home? Do they need a couple of extra days to stay in the home? Is there a closing date that helps them maybe avoid capital gains taxes? What works for them? Do they need a reverse contingency? Will they accept our offer if we give them time to go find a home of their own? Guys, it's having the conversation, asking the questions, and then listening to the answers. Understanding that if you're asking the listing agent and they give you those tips, please take them into consideration, because if you don't, if you submit an offer with something different, you've already a little bit lost with them because you didn't actually take the advice that you were seeking out.
Yeah.
So what else does my buyer need to know? What else about this does my buyer need to know to set my offer apart? And then we're going to discuss that with our buyers. We're going to make sure that we're referring to the expectations that were set during the buyer consult. We're referring to those expectations that were set when we were in the showings. And so I know that a lot of people lately have said to me, okay, how are you handling the second showing? If a buyer wants to get in the house the second time, guys, do it right then. If you're at the house and you're physically showing the house, I know some of you are still virtually showing, and that's great. Record it so that they can look back at it. If you're still doing an in-person showing and you're there, have them walk out of the house while you're talking about it. Take a deep breath, have a glass of water or a bottle of water, whatever you've got in your car, and do the second showing then. The reason we're doing the second showing then is so that they feel like they've seen the house twice. The second showing, you're not talking during. It's your buyer's chance to look at the house again. You're not making another appointment. You're saving time. You're giving people the opportunity, which also alleviates that buyer remorse later if they feel like they made the decision too fast. So make sure that you are buttoning it up on the front side. Say that to the listing agent. We looked through it twice. They know this is their house. This is how serious they are. And then Sarah put this script on here, which is so you, Sarah. This is like, you're like the hard close. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, at what price are you willing to lose this home? You've done the second showing. You've pulled the comps. You've set the right expectations. If it's their house, at what price are you willing to lose this home? Because what I can tell you is most offers, if someone is in the market, most offers are going to come in at or just a little bit above list price. If your buyer wants to win, be the standout, be the outlier, be the one that checks all the boxes the seller wants, and give them the best price. That is how you win in a multiple offer. It is understanding the complete package, making that relationship with the listing agent so that your offers, they know if an offer comes in from you, it's going to get to closing. So Sarah,
Jen,
what do you think?
well,
Tell me
what I loved about all the things that you said is we're not waiting until we're presenting the offer to reach out to the listing agent. When we know that our buyers are considering an offer, we're making that phone call. Not a text, not a Facebook message, not an Instagram message, guys. Like, I'm not kidding. Pick up the phone, right? I'm in my mid-30s. I get it. I might be older than most of you. And pick up the phone and make a phone call. That phone call can sometimes make or break your buyer's opportunity at their offer even being considered. And it's so silly how simple that is and how few agents actually stop what they're doing, pick up the phone and make a phone call. And all we're doing is coming from curiosity, right? What does your seller need to see in my buyer's offer for it to be their first pick?
Yep.
Right? And we've already told the buyers at the consultation, that's one of our strategies. I'm going to call the listing agent before I make an offer and ask as many questions as I can. Because guys, I know there are some things that listing agents shouldn't tell buyer agents. I can think of so many occasions where I've asked some very basic questions and I've gotten some really good information. I don't know about you, Jen, but I have too, you know?
Well, like to talk and they're so used to getting the text message that's what sets you apart. So I love that, Sarah. I mean, you're exactly right. If you ask a question, also be willing to be quiet and listen to what the answer is so you can.
That's the hardest part.
It is to either have the follow-up, know what follow-up question you need to ask, or write down and retain the information they've given you to help your buyer. So tell me do's and don'ts. I know I went over some of them. I know that.
Okay. You know why, Jen? I'm looking at the clock and we're going to have a ton of time for Q&A, which is great because I'm seeing a lot of great questions come in this question box and I want to make sure we get to these as well. Some great offers about contingencies, which I know will be great questions about contingencies, which I know will be super helpful for us to answer. So we've talked to the listing agent on the phone. We know what it's going to take for our buyer's offer to be strongly considered. We've talked to our buyers, and now it's time for us to present the offer. And guys, again, this is like kind of funny, but really true. Like, do call the listing agent again once you presented the offer. Don't expect that you're going to send an email with a read receipt and they're going to know that it's from you, right? We want to send the email with the offer, and then we want to follow up with a phone call and say, hey, Jen, it's Sarah Detmore with the Loken Group. Go ahead and check your inbox while we're on the phone. I want to make sure that my offer was sent to you like I told you it would be. Just a real quick recap. Here are the terms that we're submitting. What questions do you have? And this is a kind of a script that came from a webinar I watched with Sarita Dua and Via Williams. I know I posted it in our Facebook group that we work in, Jen. It's the buyer specialist mastermind KW. For any of you on this webinar who want to hop in that Facebook group, we'd love to have you. Yet there's a webinar we posted in there that where Sarita does talk about multiple offer situations in her market up in Portland, Oregon, and we have to not only build that relationship with the listing agent, we have to sell our buyers, not just their offer, right? So Jen, again, this is Sarah Detmore with the Loken Group. You know, I know we spoke earlier today about my buyer's interest in making an offer. Guess what? The offer's in your inbox. I'd love for you to go ahead and pull up your inbox while we're on the phone so I can confirm that you received it. And while we're on the phone, let's talk through a couple of their quick offer terms. And oh, by the way, I want you to know a little bit about our buyers. Here's where they're coming from. Here's what they're doing. Here's anything about them. I know sometimes we'll even submit what we call a love letter with an offer. And sometimes that can have a huge impact on the listing agent as well, guys, or on the sellers as well. When we can sell our buyers and also sell our offer, I think sometimes that just makes, like, you know, Jen, like you mentioned earlier, we have to kind of sell the whole package. And oftentimes when we can talk up our buyers to the other party or the co-op agent or whatever you call it, if there's a small term that we have to negotiate that might be price, might be some kind of post-close possession, something, I'm more likely to get a counter offer in a multiple offer situation when I feel like the listing agent and the sellers really understand who my buyers are and what makes this property the one for them, how strong our offer is, all those things, right? I know we go one step further and have the lender reach out and call the listing agent to talk about the buyer's financing, and that can be a huge win as well. And like I said here on the screen, we're selling the offer and the buyer, not just the offer. Okay. Some things that we don't want to do when we're presenting an offer to a listing agent. We don't want to blindly send an offer over to a listing agent who we have not had a voice-to-voice conversation with. Guys, I get that sometimes people are hard to get on the phone, yet do your clients a favor and make certain that you have a conversation with the listing agent before you submit an offer on their listing. And guys, this is a huge don't, is please don't negotiate terms or repairs or anything with an offer via text or email. The text or email is great to follow up on a negotiation conversation, yet things get taken so out of context in a text or an email. And while it might be convenient, it might allow you to kind of say something you might not say on the phone if you say it behind a text or an email. Yet those conversations are so powerful and from my perspective, allow you to show up just as more of a genuine agent and just a real person, for goodness sake, when you've had those conversations. Jen, what do you want to say about that?
Well, I was going to say the energy shines through. They can tell your professionalism. On a text message or an email, you can misread something. The only thing I wanted to circle back to is on the love letters, market to market, be cautious of those because of Fair Housing Acts. So just understand that you need to be cautious with how you write those. So sometimes what Sarah was talking about in calling and talking about your buyer, that's the best approach, because I can tell you now that I have handled a few listings, the sellers always say, well, what about the buyers? Tell me about them. What do you know about them? Well, as a listing agent, I'm like, I have no idea. I'm not representing the buyer. And they like to know. They like to know who's going to take their home and have pride of ownership.
Mm-hmm.
So
definitely. I love all that. So again, Jen, watching the clock here, I want to get to questions. Why don't we talk real quick? Just we be doing all these wonderful people on this webinar a disservice if we didn't let them know about our group program that is coming up on September 23rd is our launch date. And again, like Jen said at the top of the hour, new name, new content, new script book. If you've taken our group coaching program before, we'd love to have you again. So Jen, do you want to talk a little bit about what that program is and what all these wonderful people can expect?
Yes, so Sarah and I have both built out this team within a team concept. We both added admin support, we both added lead generation support and showing agent support. So I run, the buy side that I run runs about 300 units a year, and it was 1 buyer agent with 2 showing specialists. We were at 225 for 4 years in a row. This year we will hit 300. And so we have my experience, we have Sarah's experience with the Loken group, and we're going to teach you how to set goals and track numbers. We're going to teach you how to do a buyer consult. We're going to role play a buyer consult this time. We're going to run through all of how that looks. We're going to talk about building and managing a pipeline. We're going to talk about leveraging with lead generation and eventually showing partners. We're going to teach you the right way to leverage in the right order to leverage so that you can build a massive business. And then we're also going to talk to you about how do you hire and retain talent. So it is a 6-week program. Our target audience is a buyer agent, whether you're on a team or you're an individual agent that wants to focus on buyers, or a rainmaker that's getting ready to maybe hire a buyer agent, and this could alleviate some of that training for you. So all calls are recorded. I did see on this, someone asked if this webinar was recorded. It is, and you receive a copy of it. So the investment, Sarah, is how much? $198?
$198, yep.
So that's where you register. We launched the week after Mega, and we are super excited.
We are super excited. So if you want more information, guys, you can visit mapscoaching.com/group. And again, the coaching program name is the Ultimate Buyer Agent. The format's just like this, right? And Jen and I like to ask questions and have things be interactive. And so we want you guys to participate. We'll be on video, so you can pretend like we're just right there with you in your living room or wherever you are, and it'll be great. So we'd love to have you guys join us. So let's jump into these questions, Jen. There's a lot of great content in this question box. So let's start. I'm going to scroll back up to the beginning. I guess we were sounding like chipmunks to somebody, but sorry about that. Okay, so let's talk about the best way to handle a buyer making an offer in a multiple offer situation when the buyer is contingent on selling. So drop some knowledge on us, Jen. What do you think?
So the first conversation I would have with the buyer is if their house is not under contract. So that's the contingency. They've not sold theirs. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, what comes first, the chicken or the egg, right? We've got to put you in a great position for negotiating power. And you're not in a great position for negotiating power right now. We really need to focus on getting your home sold first to put you in the best possible position. What I know is that if you, for whatever reason, someone would be interested in taking your offer, they like your offer, they're okay with the contingency, what I can tell you is you will pay more for that contingency. And if I'm doing my job again is to get you the best house at the best price. So what we've got to do is look at what comes first, the chicken or the egg. In this case, in this situation, we've got to get your house sold to put you in the best possible position to make the best possible offer to get the best possible price on the property that you want to call home.
And I love that script, Jen, because the buyer will answer that question for you, right? When it comes to
for the house to have the contingency. And if the objection then is, but I don't know where I'm going to go. You're right. And we're in a seller's market. So because we're in a seller's market, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, wouldn't you agree that when your house goes on the market and you receive multiple offers, won't we take the offer that gives us the option to have time to go find the next house? We can protect you all the way around. We're here to make sure you have a great consumer experience.
I love that. And Ashley's asking a question about how we bring these things up in a consult without scaring our buyer out of buying in the current market. And Ashley, you know, my opinion is that your buyer won't be scared if they truly are motivated and have a reason to buy a house now. They will appreciate you helping educate them on what it's going to take for them to compete in the market right now. And if they do get scared away, they're not a buyer, and that's okay. They're not a buyer for the market right now. We can talk about other opportunities or other options for them. If they don't want to compete, then we can talk about, let's look at aged inventory. You might not find a home with all the bells and whistles yet. If we're looking for an opportunity for you to have some wiggle room on negotiations and have some leverage, let's look at those homes that have been on the market for a little while longer and see what our opportunity is there. And there's another question about, does one type of loan have an advantage over another, FHA versus conventional versus VA? I know in our market here in Houston, that can have some, the type of financing can definitely have some, I'd say, leverage one way or the other, depending on what the seller's preference or the listing agent might be educating the seller on at that point, right? It's what's the least amount of risk to the seller. Yet that to me is why that relationship with the listing agent is so important, especially if your buyer might be at a disadvantage for financing. Because guys, I've know that I've won several multiple offer situations with a VA buyer up against cash deals. And to me, it's just the relationship. So Jen, what are your thoughts on that?
I agree with you. Clearly conventional is a more stable option. Cash is the most stable. And if someone really wants out of a contract, we all know that they can get out of a contract. So what you've got to bring, the only time emotion is appropriate, right? So is somebody going to be scared initially? No, because we're presenting this as experts in the market. Now, emotion comes into play when it's healthy emotion, when it's good emotion, when we convince or sell the seller. That's what Sarah said earlier, guys. Mark that down. Our job, we are salespeople. We are going to sell our buyer to the seller and the listing agent. So that's when healthy emotion is appropriate. Make the emotional tie. When you're showing the house, use the Ford method. Look at the seller's, the family, their occupation, their recreation, their dreams. Somehow tie that in. Bring it back around that your buyers have the same interests or they love the home in the same way. Sarah's right. That's the relationship. That's how you beat a cash offer, is if you've built the relationship enough with the listing agent that the listing agent will also sell your buyer to their sellers.
Yeah, and there are so many more great questions in here, guys. And what Jen and I will do, we'll have Carlos email us a list of these questions, guys, and Jen or I will get back to you directly to answer these offline for you, because Jen, it's 11:31. We almost stay within our time. I know we're getting so much better on time.
Guys, normally it's an extra 10 minutes.
30 minutes flies by. But guys, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon or morning, wherever you're joining us from. Again, you will get an email with a link to this recording if you want to watch it back, or if you want to hear more about our group program. You're welcome to reach out to us. Jen and I are both pretty accessible. My email address is my first name, Sarah, SARAH, @thelokengroup.com. And Jen, do you want to drop your email address in here just in case?
Yes, my email address is my name, Jen Davis, one N, JenDaviskw @gmail.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys again for joining us. We hope you took away a couple of nuggets. And yes, we will definitely respond. Liz is asking if we can email everyone just all the questions and the answers. Why not? We're all here to learn and grow together. So we'll get on that sometime this week, guys. And we hope to see you guys on September 23rd. Well, back up, we'll hope to see you virtually at Mega Camp next week, and then also see you guys on September 23rd for week 1 of the Ultimate Buyer Agent. So that's it for me. Jen, anything else from you?
No, you guys, thank you so much. What an amazing 30 minutes. All these great questions. Sarah and I will get to them. I hope you all have a happy Wednesday, and we'll see you at Mega next week.
Awesome. Bye, guys. Bye, Jen.